Today we're going to make something called raspberry sticks. So the first thing you're going to do is get a large bowl, and you're going to add 1 cup of butter and half a cup of shortening to a bowl. Beat those together until blended. Add 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1 teaspoon of salt. Just spilled my vanilla. Just a second. Beat till combined. You're going to beat in 3 1/2 cups of flour, a little at a time. If it starts to get too thick for your hand mixer, then you just add the rest of the flour, and you can beat the rest of the flour in by hand. Knead the dough until it comes together and shape it into a bowl. Set this aside. Now you're going to prepare the filling. You need 2/3 of a cup of raspberry preserves. Now it's calling for seedless raspberry preserves. I don't have any of that. This is raspberry jam that my father made, actually. So I'm using his jam, and the raspberries were grown in my parents' backyard, so they are organic. So there we go, 2/3 of a cup of seedless raspberry preserves. To that you're going to add 1 teaspoon of finely shredded orange peel. And this is actually not the peel, this is the zest. I didn't use peel, I just used the zest. I'm sure the effect was going to be the same. And 1/4 cup of snipped apricots. This is going to be the filling. So you take your dough ball and cut it in half. Take one of the pieces, and you're going to roll it between sheets of waxed paper or parchment paper until it makes a square that's 12 by 6. And Dolores, who's Dolores on YouTube, link in the sidebar, who is an accomplished cookie maker herself, has suggested to me not to use wax paper, that parchment paper is better. So we're going to try that right now. And she's right. Doesn't stick at all. Thank you, Dolores. Okay, so you spread half of the filling on half of the dough. And it says to spread it to within 1/2 inch of the edge. Now it says to carefully fold the dough rectangle lengthwise in half to cover the filling, using the wax paper to lift the dough. Seal all edges. Here we go. Well, that works nicely. Look at that. Lovely. And we're going to seal the edges. Okay, lightly grease a cookie sheet. Now, carefully invert the filled dough rectangle onto a prepared cookie sheet, using the wax paper to flip the dough. Okay, here we go. Voila! Sure, all edges of the dough rectangle are sealed. And create a decorative edge by pressing the dough edges with the tines of a fork. And then you're going to do the same thing with the other half of the dough, and you're going to put it on this side. Then you're going to bake in a preheated oven to 20 to 25 minutes until the edges are lightly brown. Okay, I'm having some issues with this recipe. You're supposed to bake this at 375 for 20 to 25 minutes. Now, I figured that sounded like really, really high heat to me for the thickness of this dough. And I was right. after, I usually put the recipe in a little shorter time than normal because my oven is usually a little bit hotter. But after 10 minutes, the bottom was burning and the center is not cooked. So I'm not convinced how this is going to turn out, but we're going to continue anyway. So after it comes out of the, yeah, Max wants this piece, he can have it. Once it comes out of the oven, the edges are brown, well, in this case black. You let it cool a little bit, and then you're going to cut it in 3/4 inch slices, diagonally, like so. And this is a twice baked cookie, which means we're going to put these pieces back onto the cookie sheet and back into the oven until the edges are brown. And it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. Good thing is that the center part of this will have a chance to cook. The bad thing is that the burnt edges aren't going to get any lighter. They're just going to get darker. 375 is just way too hot. So I'm going to recommend, well, they're not that bad. I'm going to recommend 350 until the edges are brown, because it's just way too thick for 375. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully transfer this back onto the cookie sheet, because it's so soggy in the middle here. Like this is soggy. Okay, there you go. So we're going to try to get this back onto the cookie sheet without breaking it. There we go. And I'm just going to spread these out a bit so the edges have a chance to brown. See, the edges here are okay, but the ones in the middle here are so soft. So these are going to go back into the oven. I'm going to put it at 350 until these edges here are brown. And then we'll go on to the next step. The recipe calls, after they come out of the oven and they're lightly browned, you are going to melt 12 ounces of white baking pieces or white chocolate. Now, I only had 6 ounces, so that's what I'm going to do. And you put 2 tablespoons of shortening if you have 12 ounces. But since I only have 6 in here, I'm going to put 1 tablespoon. And you're going to melt this in the microwave. And the secret to melting chocolate in the microwave is to only use 50% power. And you're going to melt this up. This was about 2.5 minutes at 50% power in my microwave. And it's nicely melted. Once the cookies are cool, you will take the melted chocolate, dunk the end in, let it drip off a little bit, and put it on a wax paper covered cookie sheet, and then sprinkle with some decorations and let that cool until hard. These actually turned out better than I thought they would. They are very pretty and they taste fantastic. It's a very, very tasty recipe. And I hope you enjoy them. Take care, everybody. Bye. The French word of the day is for raspberry, and that's framboise. Framboise. And coincidentally, that's also the name of a cat. Eden Bainbridge's cat.